Hey everyone. So if you've been grinding away in sales, marketing, or community engagement for any amount of time, you know your database is literally your lifeblood. But today, we're going to look at that database through an entirely different lens. We're breaking down the Signal Daddy Media Unified Compliance and Engagement Framework in this explainer. Okay, let's dive into this, because what we're about to uncover regarding your CRM might completely change the way you look at your entire outreach strategy.
Think about your database right now. If you're like most business owners or engagement pros, you've probably got thousands of contacts just sitting in there that have gone totally cold. And it's super common to look at those stale leads and think, hey, that's an untapped gold mine, right? I just need the right email blast or the perfect text message to wake them up. We all assume there's latent value there, but honestly, what is that dormant data actually worth to you today?
Well, brace yourself. For a lot of organizations, that number is actually negative $750,000. I know, no way, right? It's a terrifying number, but let me explain exactly where that comes from. If you run just a single, traditional automated outreach campaign to save 500 of those stale, dormant leads, you could be generating up to $750,000 in immediate legal liability. That supposed untapped gold mine is actually a massive financial hazard if you handle it the old school way. So, let's get into Section 1, the CRM ticking time bomb. Reaching out to stale data as we approach 2026 isn't just an ineffective strategy that gets you low open rates. It is quite literally a legal trap. This whole thing is governed by something called the TCPA compliance line. The Telephone Consumer Protection Act has strict boundaries, and let me tell you, they are incredibly unforgiving. When you use lapsed consent or accidentally hit a reassigned phone number with an automated message, the penalties don't just gently scale up. You're looking at a direct hit of $500 to $1,500 per single incident. That means any data in your system that's over 6 months old, consider it highly radioactive. The second you cross that 6-month line, your risk exposure absolutely skyrockets. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the reason older data is so dangerous. It comes down to this one metric right here. Look at that 5% slice. In any given data set over time, you've got a 3 to 5% reassignment rate. That means the person you thought you were texting doesn't even own that phone number anymore. Someone else does. This completely shatters that super dangerous assumption of, well, they were my customer once, so I have the right to text them. If that number changed hands, you're blasting an unconsenting consumer, and you are entirely on the hook. And just to put the sheer scale of this into perspective, 100,000 phone numbers are recycled daily into the reassigned numbers database. Every single day, the landscape of who owns what number is literally shifting beneath your feet. Your database is not just some static list of trusted friends, it's a dynamic, decaying asset that gets more hazardous by the minute. Knowing this massive risk, let's move into Section 2, why traditional tools fail. We really need to examine these legacy limitations and ask, why can't the standard marketing and CRM software you're already paying for save you from this threat? The hard truth is, legacy outreach tools were built for an entirely different era. If you try to clean your list by running standard email validations, you're just bleeding money. I mean, it costs you 6 to 12 cents just to see if an email bounces. And even if the data somehow gets through, these cold campaigns yield completely dismal response rates, almost always under 2%. But here is the absolute worst part. Standard automation, the exact feature most platforms sell themselves on, is the exact mechanism that directly triggers these devastating TCPA risks. They are essentially marching you right toward a legal disaster while charging you for the privilege. Think of the big popular platforms like HubSpot or Zoho as the plumbing in your house. They provide incredible pipes, right? They give you the structural database, the filing cabinets, the routing systems. But pipes alone don't actually nourish anything. Signal Daddy Media, or SDM, provides the water. They offer proprietary engagement assets that flow through those pipes to create a genuine human handshake. Without that vital fluid running through it, your CRM is just a dry, dangerous piece of infrastructure. All right, so Section 3, the value first reactivation shift. This represents a whole new paradigm where we pivot away from trying to extract value from our old leads to actually giving value to the community. This quote right here really captures the entire shift perfectly. Instead of a sales pitch, we lead with a value-first gift. If you want to bypass the massive compliance risks we were just talking about, you have to drop the automated sales blast entirely. Just toss it out. You replace it with non-automated, human-centric delivery. When you lead with a gift, you change the dynamic from a cold solicitation to a genuine offering, and that dramatically changes your compliance footprint. So what does this actually mean for your business? Well,
When someone engages with that value-first asset, they generate what's called a verified intent signal. Think of it as a proof-of-life handshake. By interacting with your gift, the prospect is basically waving their hand and saying, yes, I'm here, this is my current contact info, and I am actively engaging with your brand. Compliance is no longer just this heavy legal burden. It becomes a relationship-building superpower. You aren't just dodging fines, you're handing your sales team a genuinely warm, verified reason to actually make a phone call.
This entire process happens in phase 1, which is known as the cleanse, powered by the SDM reactivation engine. Step 1, you deliver that non-automated, value-first community asset. Step 2, that delivery securely facilitates the proof-of-life handshake we just talked about. And here is where it gets incredibly powerful with step 3. Get this, a single asset can generate up to 8 trackable interactions. You're completely stopping the bleeding of your dead database and actively converting those cold entries right back into a safe, warm, and highly active pipeline.
Fixing the past is great, for sure. But we don't just want to repair old data, we want to build a thriving future. So, Section 4, Unifying Engagement and Growth, shows us exactly how to take this safe reactivation method and use it for brand new outbound growth.
This is where the SDM engagement engine comes into play. It acts as this lightweight overlay across your entire business. Normally, you know how it is, HR, marketing, community engagement, and sales, they operate in total silos. They don't really talk to each other, and they certainly aren't sharing lead generation strategies. But this system bridges those departments. Because you're using community literacy and value-first assets, you can run your reactivation campaigns simultaneously with brand new lead generation, all under one unified system. It's a real game changer. This simultaneous approach creates what SDM calls the compliance moat strategy. It completely replaces those risky automated solicitations with value-first assets. It captures behavioral signals, like, when someone actually downloads an asset or enters an engagement room. And because you're capturing genuine intent rather than just blindly firing off texts, you verify reachable contacts naturally. This keeps your entire organization firmly out of the compliance red zone because you're deeply respecting the boundaries of modern communication laws.
Let's move to and see how this builds in a real-world scenario. Imagine your prospect encounters your brand. Step 1, they scan a QR code to receive a trackable literacy asset. It's a real gift. Step 2, a same-day thank you text is delivered organically, which establishes that initial warm connection without some aggressive pitch. Step 3, a perfectly timed 3 to 4 day follow-up invites them into an engagement room. Just like that, you've successfully captured engagement, delivered real value, and nurtured a lead, all without ever crossing that dangerous TCPA line.
Now, everything we've talked about sounds wonderful from a community building and legal standpoint, right? But hey, business is business. So let's bring it all home in Section 5, the undeniable ROI, and anchor everything you've just learned to some cold, hard numbers.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer financial efficiency of the SDM system. Let's look at a massive industry standard for lead generation, like Zillow. You might be paying $20 to $60 just for a single cold click. There's no verified intent, no proof of life, it's just a wildly expensive click. Compare that to SDM, where you're looking at roughly 56 cents to $3.75 per verified interaction. It's a fraction of the cost for significantly higher quality of engagement.
But honestly, the cost of the leads isn't even the most important math on the table here. The real cost of doing business comes down to risk mitigation. On one hand, you've got the cost of the unified SDM platform at $199 a month. On the other hand, you have a $50,000 plus settlement. And that is an entirely realistic cost of ignoring the TCPA compliance line and hitting those reassigned numbers. When you stack that minimal monthly software cost directly against a catastrophic settlement risk, making the shift to a compliant, value-first engine becomes an absolute no-brainer. Ultimately, this is all about what SDM calls the land and expand phase. By unifying your back-end recovery, cleansing that dormant CRM data, with your front-end outreach for new growth, you're creating an unshakable foundation. Every single interaction your business has moving forward is rooted in community impact and professional trust. It just seamlessly blends intent, behavior, and total compliance into one fluid motion.
So I leave you with this to think about as we wrap up today's explainer. You now know exactly what is sitting in your database and the massive legal and financial risks associated with handling it the old way. The choice is entirely yours. Will you leave your CRM as a ticking time bomb, just hoping you don't trigger a devastating fine? Or will you take action, cleanse that data with value-first intent, and transform it into your most powerful, risk-free community asset? Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I really hope this gives you exactly what you need to grow your business safely and effectively. Catch you next time.